Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Admiral Markets webinar. Today is 10th of June, 6 p.m., and you can see there is a lot of volatility in the market. So if you don't want to make any trades, don't be patient and relax with this webinar, okay? We will trade back when market is a bit calmer. So, guys, today we will talk about new approaches in pivot point trading. I will show you some new strategies concerning pivot points, and we will revisit one old concerning Camarilla pivot point. So as always, before we begin, our standard risk disclaimer. Obviously, I don't have slides, but I can tell you that all risk disclaimer is, as always, the same. So if you want to fully understand the risk, you can read the risk disclaimer from other webinars, and online educational materials that are available by Admiral Markets Estonia for a global audience. So take into consideration that information in this session may not be suitable for everyone. To get a corresponding information on charting conditions and any detail, please visit www.admiralmarketsglobal.com, select your country of residence, and contact an appropriate entity. So with having said that, we are ready to proceed, guys. What are pivot points, structure of pivot points, types of pivot point indicators, Camarilla pivots, and new pivot point strategies. So today you will see static pivot point strategy and dynamic pivot point strategy. If you are wondering what is dynamic pivot point, then let's say that static pivot points are always calculated for the same day. So when you see static pivot point, for example, euro dollar 1300, for example, let's say that that is a support. That will be the support for the whole day. But we also apply dynamic pivot points where by price movement and volatility, that indicator also changes. So you will see what that is. That is probably new to you. But that is basically a Fibonacci pivot point calculation, which is not static, which is dynamic, and which changes during the time of trend, periods, and volatility, okay? So you need to know that dynamic pivot points are something which now some traders adopt instead of static pivot points. But this is one of the fields maybe we will talk about a little bit more in the future. And it's actually pretty much interesting how they behave, because they follow both price, volatility, and trend, okay? It looks different from static pivot points, but the advantage is really that it follows the price, okay? And we will see that today, okay? Now, what are pivot points in general? Pivot points is just a technical indicator which is used to determine important support and resistance levels, okay? So we are talking now about classic pivot points. Classic pivot point is the average of high, low, and closing price from the previous day. Now, obviously, some traders would wonder, why would we take previous day calculation into today's price levels? Well, the answer is, in my opinion, is pretty much straightforward, guys. You know that trading Forex market is always about, at least how I see it, finding confluence points with historical buyers and sellers. So if the history showed one price level where the price reacted, that means that if the price reacted in the history, it can also react in the now moment, okay? So now moment buyers and now moment sellers, we always compare it to historical buyers and historical sellers. So I can see the people still coming in, so you didn't miss anything. This is our first slide, so don't worry about it. So as I say, The average of high, low, and closing price from the previous day is calculated into today's price, and that shows pivot points. Pivot points are not changing. We are talking about classic pivot points. They will stay the same for through the whole day. Okay, through the whole day they stay the same, and you probably know about it. Now, pivot points usually are used to determine market sentiment. Okay, so market sentiment is used to determine is also determined by pivot points. Pivot points originally were used by floor traders, so those were the traders who traded at the floor. Okay, uh, those pivot points usually resemble last session's high, low, and close price. Okay, usually we take New York closing time, which is 16 or 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or that is 10 Central European Standard Time. And there are also a lot of indicators which plot pivot points. If you received my Camarilla pivot point indicator, in the settings you can also switch to show classic pivot points. So that is what I use also on my charts. Now this is the formula for basic calculation of pivot points. It's simple: high, low, close divided by 3. Okay. Then we will get first resistance by using double the pivot point, so 2 times pivot point minus low and 2 times pivot point minus high, which is will be the first support. Now this is all. I don't need to read you through all of this. You can snapshot if you are interested in calculation. So this is how you can also calculate your pivot points. But because we use the indicator, that is, guys, because we use the indicator. Okay, now do you see the slide, guys? Just confirm that you can see the slide. You should see the formula for basic calculation. Yeah, great. So you can see the slide. Great. So the screen was stuck. I received a message, so thank you for cooperation. Basically, the pivot point, this is the formula. You can snapshot if you want, and you can also calculate it by yourself by using this equation. So this is a simple equation, guys. This is the equation from the first grade in basic school, basically primary school. So you just need to, if you want to do it manually, first you need to calculate pivot point by adding high, low, and close, and that sum is divided by 3. Now that pivot point is used in calculation of first resistance, second resistance, support, and third resistance and support. So this is all. You don't need to do this, but I know that some traders, for example, on Forex Factory, there are some traders that basically they were calculating pivot points by themselves manually, but I don't do that really. I have my Camarilla pivot point, and also in the same indicator you can see daily pivot points, so you don't need to calculate it by yourself. But let's say I'm here to educate you. If you are interested, you can do it manually. Okay, you can do it manually by yourself. If you do it manually, take this close into account. Okay, as I said, it's New York closing time, and Admiral Markets platform uses Eastern European or New York closes time, which corresponds to New York close. So pivots from Admiral Markets are pretty accurate. Okay. Now, types of pivot point indicators. We have a lot of indicator for pivot point. So standard pivot point indicators, Fibonacci pivot point, last week support resistance, hourly pivot, Murray Mat pivot point, Camarilla. Most of those indicators are static indicators. They do not change throughout the day. Okay, when next day is due, and when next day begins, usually after 1 or 2 hours we can see new levels, because they are calculated by the previous, as you say, high, close, and low. Caesar is asking, how can we get a Camarilla indicator? of course, it's pretty much straightforward for all Admiral Markets clients and for all people who have been visiting webinars. I can give you Camarilla indicator for free, and you just need to send me an email. My email, you all know my email. It's tarantulafx@gmail.com. It's simple. So just write me an email and I will send you the indicator. No problems with it. Okay. And you will get also dynamic pivot point indicator. Just send me an email and I can email you this dynamic pivot point. We will see that at the end of the webinar. No worries. So this is basically, most of them are static pivot points indicator. Now, we talked about Murray-Matt pivot point. It's actually a good indicator. And you remember that I told you that it's very, very accurate, and there are some good systems which can benefit from Murray-Matt. I will do one more webinar with Murray-Matt trading system, and you just need to know at the time being that Murray-Matt is also static pivot point indicator, and maybe it is the most static indicator of all of these indicators, because Murray-Matt pivot points only change, you remember the webinar, when octaves change. Murray-Matt does not change every single day. It only changes when the overshot levels are broken, +28, -28. When those two levels are broken, then Murray-Matt changes its levels. All of these other indicators, which you can see on the slide, usually change levels each day, and that is a normal thing. It's nothing. It's nothing strange. Okay. Now Carolyn is asking, between pivot point and Murray-Matt, which do you consider to be more accurate? It depends on what kind of trading system you use. Usually both of those indicators are very accurate. Okay, so I don't know, maybe Murray-Matt a little bit, but also pivot points are very, very accurate. Okay, especially when you see that I post some pivot points along with Camarilla, they are very accurate. But I need to say, Murray-Matt, it's not just for day trading. You can go with Murray-Matt for mid-term trading, okay? And that is where Murray-Matt shines, okay? Not just intraday, as I already explained. Levels on Murray-Matt do not change every day. You know how Murray-Matt octave looks like. And at the top of Murray-Matt octaves, there is +2, 8. And at the bottom, there is -2, 8. When price breaks this level or this level, only then those octaves change with new levels. So that is why it's important to know that Murray-Matt can effectively be used in mid-term trading. But for intraday trading, maybe pivot points are more suitable. So I'm not saying that Murray-Matt is not suitable for intraday trading. It is. But because pivot points do change every single day, depending on the strategy, maybe you will see better results with pivot points. But also do not underestimate the power of Murray-Matt. And Jen is asking how to do Murray-Matt for midterm trading. Jen, that requires a separate webinar. So once I finish with Murray-Matt system for midterm trading, I will show you. But it will come probably maybe in August, or I think it will come in August. I need to do more testing and I will present you on the webinar. So stay tuned. It will be a Murray-Matt midterm trading, okay, not intraday. So you will be trading maybe once in a week, okay? But let's wait until then. But as I say, the point is that Murray-Matt is, yeah, it is accurate, but all of these indicators usually are more suitable for intraday, okay? Especially Camarilla. You can see my analysis is always done with Camarilla, and occasionally I can put some other pivot point indicator, but you can see that the calculations are pretty much accurate with Camarilla, and they really do wonders with the analysis and following price movement. But as I say, not necessary is that that all other indicators are bad. They're good in its own sense. So it just depends from a strategy to a strategy. Okay. Now, typical usage of pivot points is to identify the trend on higher time frames, watch reaction around pivot points. Entries are made around pivot points. You know about it, okay? We also place a stop loss somewhere around pivot points, okay? Then we do exit our trades when they're close to pivot points. And the biggest advantage is that it doesn't matter which kind of system you use, but it's always suitable on every single system, okay? So it can be plotted on every system as additional indicator. Especially today, when really a big majority of traders, both retail and hedge fund traders, they really love to use pivot points. And because majority of people use pivot points, and majority of banks, believe it or not, use pivot points, okay? That gives additional power to pivot points. Okay, so that is, when you follow the majority, you will be usually right. Okay, so that is why you can see big reactions on important levels. Okay, that is why you can see big reactions on important levels. And that is why pivot points, and where pivot points indeed shine, okay, they're very, very powerful, no matter which kind of system you use. The question is, if majority of people use pivot points, does it mean more fake outs to take out the small players? Yeah, it can be, but it's not because of small players and pivot points. Usually when you see movements, let's say that this is important pivot point and you are short, and let's say that price has come very close to this pivot point, but you didn't close your trade and your stop loss is here. Usually the price will spike, hit your stop loss. It's not fake out. It's just that when these movements happen, stops are usually placed around pivot points, and that is why you can see some stop grabbing and movement. It's not about fake outs, about false movements, etc., and small big players. It's not about it. It's about grabbing the stop. Once those stops are grabbed, there is basically a big movement, instant big movement in the market. Okay, so it's good to use pivot points, because usually when you're in the trade, you know where you should exit the trade, or at least where you should take a part of your trade out, or also where to put your stop loss. How would you calculate your stop loss? For example, you see a previous low here, but that previous low is very close to pivot point, and there is a bullish movement in the market. Of course, you will place your stop loss a little bit below pivot point. Okay, so it's always a good indicator. You just need to observe price behavior around pivot points. Okay, so you don't need to see another window. You're looking at a slide, and I'm charting the slide, so don't worry. So you just need to think about it. Price behavior is usually repeated throughout the history and now moment. When you compare history to now moment, you will definitely see behavior. Okay. So I will show you price behavioral patterns in one of our next videos with using pivot points. Okay, so stay tuned for more webinars about pivot points. We cannot say very important things just with this webinar. So price behavioral patterns, or PHP, we will see it during one of our next sessions. Okay. Yes, and Carol is saying that he's testing pivot points. He made 200 pips with some system he's testing with pivot points. So yeah, pivot points is always good. And if you follow my analysis on our recap sessions, and if you follow my analysis each day on Armor Markets, you know that I always do analysis with Camarilla pivots. And that is why we also, by applying my method, Camarilla MACD, you can see that every session recap is a winner for us. We really have a good win ratio with this analysis and session recaps. So yes, there is a lot of magic in pivot points. Okay. Now this is Camarilla. We will go through typical Camarilla scenarios. So these are, guys, typical Camarilla scenarios. So we are not talking about the system. So this is how Camarilla is typically used if you only use it as pivot point trading system. So this is only for that. This is not Camarilla MACD. This is how these scenarios are shown to work with Camarilla. But you can apply this knowledge also to other systems. But these are typical scenarios. So scenario 1 shows us that the open price is between H3 and L3. For long trade, usually wait for the price to go below L3, and then if it moves in next couple of candles above A3, then, guys, you buy it. This is it. See, it went down, and in next 3 candles here at this point it went up. Okay, you see how price reacted at daily pivot point. It was rejected, but first it was bought. Okay, stop loss will be when price moves below L4. Usual stop loss for this scenario is here. For short trade, wait for the price to go above H3. So the price opens here, it goes above H3, but next couple of candles go here, and then closes below H3. Okay, stop loss is usually here, and you aim for pivot point or L3. Okay, so this is the first scenario. Okay, then we go to second scenario, which is basically open price, and in this case open price is midnight open. Okay, open price is midnight and couple of seconds. That is the open price here. So if the price opens after the midnight, we talk about it, in between H3 and H4 for long trade, so price has opened here after the midnight and it goes here. Okay, if it breaks H4, you open a buy breakout trade and place stop loss below H3 with this target. Okay, for short trade, okay, when price goes below this pivot point, you sell. Stop is here. Okay, this is second scenario for applying Camarilla standard trading rules. Okay, you can snapshot these screens. Okay, so you can later review it later. Okay. Carolyn is asking, should we wait for candle close or we trade the live candle? Usually candle if the candle open here and the same candle goes here, you just place breakout trade. But usually first candle will close somewhere in between. And usually when you see the movement, most of the time price will open between L3 and H3, okay? So if you're interested in this Camarilla standard strategies, okay, then you need to observe price action every single open. So you will see where Camarilla usually opens. Usually it opens in between H3 and L3, but follow these scenarios because all of these scenarios will show you possible trade setups. Vigandas is saying he saw starting slide. Guys, you should see scenario 2 slide now. If you cannot see scenario 2 slide, please restart and relog, okay? Because now I'm showing scenario 2 slide, okay? Usually 1 hour time frame I use for Camarilla, and of course I'm talking now from Camarilla, not Camarilla MACD. Camarilla MACD is another method. Okay, this is the method which I use for my analysis when I show you the analysis and for finding trade entries. That is what I do every day. This is a Camarilla typical usage. Trading just by Camarilla, so typical usage. And I have never used it tested on 15 minutes, only on 1 hour. So you just need to watch these scenarios, okay? We go to scenario 3, okay? 1 hour is most suitable. Scenario 3, open price, here as you can see it is between L3 guys and L4, okay? In between L3 and L4. That means usually when the price opens around these pivot points, it will go above L3 or it can go above L4, okay? So most of the time you will be seeing this scenario, okay? Most of the time I'm saying. So this is the typical scenario for Camarilla 3 scenario, okay? L3 and L4 in between, okay? Probably a newcomer, Stella, is asking what is L and H. L is support initial, H is initial resistance, okay? So initial support, initial resistance. But it uses different letters because we use it a little bit differently from standard support and resistance levels. So scenario 3, open price is between L3 and L4. So this is L3, L4, and the price open here. Now guys, I'm specifically talking about open price after the midnight, not when movement has already started. So midnight, and then after the midnight, the first candle is the open price candle. So the first candle after the midnight is on our platform is basically when we should look for open price, for price open. So if the price opens in between L3 and L4, then when price moves above L3, we buy, guys. Stop loss is just below L4, okay? Target is pivot point and target 2 is H3. For sell trade, when the price goes below L4, guys, we sell, okay? We already know about it. We sell, okay? Okay, for sell trade, stop loss is L3 and target is L5, okay? So that is for a sell trade, okay? For a sell trade, okay? Let me pause the screen for a brief moment and I will roll on to scenario 4, guys, okay? Scenario 4, okay? Scenario 4, okay, scenario 3. Setting is daily, but 15 minutes. What setting, please, is 4 hours? For 1 hour, time frames, you use daily settings on Camarilla. Okay, so guys, you use for 1 hour time frame, you use daily. For 4 hour, you should use weekly. Okay, but now we are not talking about switching time frames. We are just talking 1 hour time frames and scenarios. There is no deviation from this rule. 1 hour and daily Camarilla. Scenario 4, open price. Yen is asking for 15 minutes. If you want to see 15 minutes, then again use daily, Jen, daily for 15 minutes. But I really recommend using it. At least if you want to use these 4 scenarios, then you should leave it on 1 hour and daily. If you use 15 minutes for other types of trading, then again daily. Okay. Let me explain scenario 4, then I will go back to scenario 3 because I see a question. So scenario 4, open price is outside H4 or L4. Now, if you see that the open price is in between these levels, we need to wait for the price to settle up. We don't do anything. So we need to wait for the price to settle up. Okay, think about it. Need to wait for the price to settle up. Okay. Okay, this is scenario 3. Okay, question about scenario 3. Price moves up and break out H4. So scenario 3. Okay, this is scenario 3. We do not have H4 in scenario 3. In scenario 3, if the price opens here and goes above L3, we buy. If it goes below this point, we sell. That is scenario 3. There is no other rule for scenario 3, guys. Okay, Christian, Carolyn, who asked the question, Carolyn asked the question. So there is no deviation from this rule. This is the rule for scenario 3. Between L3 and L4. If it goes above L3, we buy. If it goes below L4, we sell. Okay. And usually you do not take any other trade until next day. That's correct. You don't take any other trade until next day. That's correct. Okay. And now we will move on to new pivot point strategy. How we can observe stochastic 533 in addition to daily pivot points. So this is basically my Camarilla indicator with daily pivot points. And you can see it clearly here how the price follows up, basically those pivot points. And now the general idea for this strategy is that you need to see oversold and overbought levels in order to trade this new pivot point approach. Okay. Jen is asking why do not trade until next day for Camarilla, because once you're in a trade and once you take a profit, there is no other scenario. Jen, think logically. There is no other scenario. You can only find one scenario when the price opens. So once you make your trade and, for example, you are in a profit and you exit, there is no other scenario because price will either open within these 4 scenarios. So that is take it or leave it. Okay. Now this new pivot point strategy, for example, it shows us 533 settings on stochastics and breakout of pivot points. In order to for example, trades, this is not a typical trading system, but we will talk about a possible breakouts of pivot points. Okay, so observe this price action. This is today's price action on dollar yen. Okay, dollar yen, and this was previous low. At this point, you can see the stochastics was rejecting after it went a little bit below 20. It showed a hammer. So this level here, which that was yesterday's, support 1. This is historical daily pivot point, so it shows today level and historical levels. So you can see it clearly here, guys, that this level was broken with a big momentum. So once the price, first this level was broken, stochastics was 20, it went up. You see a hammer here. Above this pivot, we could have taken breakout trade to the long side. Now today's price action, you can see that this pivot point was broken with a big momentum here. The price was already at 80, and you can see the breakout of all these pivot points. Okay, pretty much straightforward. Okay, other scenario also shows us a possible usage of a breakout. So in this scenario here, we can see that the price was around 20, and this candle has broken the price, which was led to next resistance level. Okay, so basically this is how pivot point look like. Now if we take an opportunity and show you live charts, I will show you how you can apply this to your charts also. Okay, so you can see it here, guys, indicator list. Okay, and here you see pivot 2 indicator. Okay, here you can see period daily, and you just need to press show history and classic. You see there is Camarilla classic. This is classic pivot points. Press OK, close, and you will see historical levels and today levels. If you, for example, press pivot point, show history, false, you will not see historical levels. Okay, so this is how you can go show history, true, and here it goes. It's pretty much straightforward, nothing to be afraid of. Okay, nothing to be afraid of. Then, guys, there is also another approach. Let's just talk about this approach, and I will show you yet one more approach with this, because this can only help you in your trading, definitely. Approach says, same approach says, when pivot gets broken, look at this pivot point reaction, and stochastic is also going down in the direction of breakout, we take the trade. So look at this. Okay, pivot point down, pivot point, look, stochastic was up, and bang, it is going down. Do you see the screen now? Douglas, probably you have the problems with your PC. Just confirm that you can see, yeah, you can see the chart, real-time chart, so everything is fine. So you can see it here. This pivot point was broken out because this is resistance, look, and stochastic went down, 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 down. Okay, look at this reaction here. Okay, pivot point rejection with a hammer, and look at this from 20 level. Okay, but usually how I observe these pivot points is when pivot points are broken. Okay, Jen is asking, using 533, not other settings, because 533 has shown that breakouts can be good by using this pivot point 533 with stochastic. So that is usually when you go with breakouts. Okay, usually when you go with breakouts, okay, you just need to find levels, and you see this was huge opportunity to sell. It will usually be stuck around these levels, and it will follow these levels. Okay, rejections also. Okay, you can see rejection here and rejection here at this price. Look, it shows a false breakout, and look where you see a setting on stochastics. So stochastics is here. Okay, look, false breakout down. So try to spot these also on your charts. Okay, now we will go about dynamic pivot point indicator. Okay, dynamic pivot point indicator is yet another approach, guys, okay? It's yet another approach, and I already told you about these pivot points, okay? Now, obviously, guys, these dynamic pivot points are a little bit different from our standard pivot points. And dynamic pivot points do change along with the price, okay? They change along with the price. So, of course, if you're interested to grab this dynamic pivot point indicator, just send me an email and I will, of course, give it to you. But look at this approach. So, guys, we need to do these webinars often because market is dynamic and we cannot always think the same. So we need to adapt. We need to follow the market. And by constantly visiting our webinars, you will always have basically good knowledge. And this is a sort of Fibonacci pivot point, but you will see maybe it's different. Dynamic pivot indicator shows green as a pivot point, but I put it on green. Blue is resistance, green is also support, okay? Red is support. Sorry, this is actually my mistake, so it's red. So you have blue, green, and red. Red is support, blue is resistance, green is pivot point. Usually how it goes long entry. This is now what you can snapshot, and we will cover this. But snapshot the screen, guys. Snapshot the screen because we will cover this here. Okay. Now I will move on. Okay. This is how it goes. Okay. And for all of you who still do not know, my email is tarantulafx@gmail.com. Okay, so this is my email. tarantulafx@gmail.com. Okay, that is my email. So this is how you go with this. Long entry, we have two scenarios with dynamic pivot points. This is dynamic pivot point indicator. You can see that this dynamic pivot point is basically following the price. So one of the usage for these pivot points is to actually follow the volatile movement of both the price and pivot point itself. Okay, so we can both follow the price and pivot point itself, and that is good because if you follow it, there is usually a big opportunity that you will catch a breakout. So let's see, this is today's price action. So you also need to observe how the price behaves after the open, after the midnight. Long entry after the midnight. So this is also one-time strategy, and you usually want to go with it once per day after market opens, midnight. Okay. So so you can place pending order with 2 pips above resistance 1, targeting resistance 2, or 80 pips stop loss just around pivot line. In this example, it was a little bit different, but you just need to press stop loss, put your stop loss below pivot line. Okay. Forget about these numbers here. It's not always the same. It depends on a calculation. Okay. So this is where the price opened up. Okay. So if you want to go long, okay, you need to basically put a market order because this is already to the long side. Okay. And for short trades, price needs to break this level here. Okay. So follow the price now. This is resistance 1, this is resistance 2, and this is resistance 3. This is pivot point. This is support 1, support 2, and support 3. Okay, let's see this trade, guys. This trade was, look, it activated here at this point, and you can see it clearly here that the price broke through support 1. You place your stop loss here and you target these levels. Okay, it was hit. Also this was at this time resistance, no, this was resistance 1. So 1 pip, 2 pips above resistance 1, you need to calculate the spread also, and stop loss basically here. And look how the price was hitting the levels. Okay, so that is a good usage with this indicator. Okay, you can use it with every single pair you would like to trade with. Okay, look at euro dollar today. So this is where we had an entry. Okay, this was 2 pips above this resistance line, and look how it hit perfectly dynamic pivot point. Okay, yes, and the downside is that you must be awake. This is not what you I don't know how the name is this. You just, Jen, just send me your email. I will send this indicator to you. It's based on Fibonacci pivot points indicator, but it's dynamic indicator. There are a lot of different names for this indicator. Fox indicator, Fibonacci dynamic pivot point indicator, whatever. But I will send you. Okay, just send me an email. Then we need to observe price action, for example, also on other pairs. Let's see dollar CAD, how it behaves. Okay, again, same, it's pretty straightforward, guys. You see, price has broken through every single, obviously, very, very obviously. Look at this. Price has broken through first support here. Okay, observe this candle. It broke here. It went down, 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 and it hit all these support levels. Look at this. From pivot point, it broke this resistance by 2 pips and up, 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 up. Okay? So look how it behaves. Around pivot point, you don't do anything. Okay? You don't do anything. Guys, if you're interested in indicators, you do not send me your email. You need, Ilya, you need to send me a request on my email, and I will send you the indicators. So just be kind and send me an email. This indicator is named Fox pivot, but this is actually Fibonacci pivot, the same one I used, Jen, the same one I used 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. I saw it, okay? And usually, yes, you take the only one trade, but you can also observe how it behaves. If the price is around pivot points, yes, you take one trade, usually. So the price was here, it broke resistance, you grab your pips, okay? You grab your pips. Okay, so if you're interested, of course, in this indicator, just send me a request on my email and I will send this indicator to you, okay? Observe the behavior of when it's close to pivot points. I use it on 1 hour. Maybe it works on other time frames, but I don't need other time frames. Why? Because if you see this is pivot point, this is resistance. I just need to watch the number, so it's 24.73. If the price broke with 24.75, I will put an order. I don't need other time frames. Okay? So look at this. Price was around pivot points. Okay? And look at this. Support. Support is broken by 2 pips. And look how the price behaved. It touched next support. Okay? Look at this. Price was close. So always try to watch the price when it's close to pivot point. So price is close to pivot point, and the first breakout is usually the best. So look at this. It broke through first resistance, 2-point breakout, bang, it hits next resistance. So it usually works like that. So guys, if you have any questions concerning these strategies, This is pivot points. We will do more about pivot points, but I advise you to test this. As I always say, usually the first break of resistance or support works the best. And it usually is when price opens close to pivot points and then first hit breakout of support or first hit breakout of resistance works always the best. Okay? Always the best. Loy saying Camarilla pivot point really works. Still using it. Thank you, Tarantula. Yes, I'm very glad. I'm very glad so that you're using Loy saying that it works great. Yen, this cannot be combined with Camarilla. This is different. So some traders love to use Camarilla. Some traders like to use pivot points. So it cannot be combined with Camarilla. You just need to test it and see what suits you better. Okay, once more, price is close to pivot points. Okay, and here it is. Breakout by 2 pips and go. It goes very, very good in long direction. Okay. Here, same with euro dollar. Okay. So yeah, maybe it can be automated, but I still don't know about it. So guys, if you're interested, of course, I will send this to you, send these indicators. As always, I'm here to help you. Stay calm, market is volatile. I will be here with you soon. Tomorrow, me and Chris will have a mutual webinar. Sign up and do not forget Forex session recap. Last session recap brought us more than 150 pips. And it was very good recap. I hope that you made some pips. And guys, I wish you to have a great evening. And I will be here with you soon. Cheers. As always, trade safe.